Hey everybody, welcome back to our tour of the solar system with this wonderful old DAWs program called Orbit's Voyage through the Solar System. I'm going to skip ahead and do the planet Pluto today because I wanted to do it yesterday, which was July 14th, where New Horizons arrived at Pluto. But then I kind of got caught up in all the information in this program, which is awesome, and I spent an hour talking about the sun. So we're going to do Pluto tonight, and then I'll go back and do the inner planets, and then the rest of the outer planets. So let's go ahead and take a look at planets, and we'll pick Pluto. Oh, you know what? You can actually click on it on the main screen, which is pretty cool. So there's Pluto out there. And for anyone who hasn't watched one of my other videos, basically I'm just going to run through the program and read you all the scientific information just as a educational tour using this old DOS program. And what's great about these programs is this was before the internet, so these were kind of the first software programs that were trying to replace books with something that was more interactive, but you couldn't just go online if you had a question. You had to go to a software store which had rows and rows of software, and you could buy software about Beethoven or software about the body, or in this case software about the solar system. And you bought these individual expensive software programs to gain this information. But if you weren't going to buy the software program, you would have to buy a book, or you had your encyclopedia set. So it was an interesting approach to software development or educational software development, which quickly, once the internet came out, all these educational software programs really very quickly kind of disappeared. And it makes sense why they did, but I still think they're pretty cool. Anyway, sorry for that tangent, but let's go ahead and take a look at Pluto and Charon. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. General info. Pluto and Charon. At the farthest reaches of the solar system, Pluto moves in the cold darkness, a planet like no other. 40 times further from the Sun than the Earth, Pluto has many distinctions. Its average distance from the Sun is greater than any other planet's, and smaller than any other planet. It is even outsized by at least 7 planetary moons. Which, of course, as we know, Pluto is no longer classified as a planet. It's classified as a dwarf planet. Also, it has the largest companion relative to its own size, Charon. It is so large that many astronomers refuse to call it a moon. Instead, they dubbed the two bodies a double planet. So small and far from the Sun, Pluto is invisible to the naked eye from Earth and difficult to see even in telescopes. So an interesting thing to me is, and I kind of mentioned it in my first video from this program, is I didn't realize growing up that any image that I saw of Pluto that wasn't a blur was just an artist's rendering of Pluto. And I never knew until my 20s, when I got a telescope and tried to look, thought I could just go out and see all these planets, and then there was the internet, and I could go on and search for help and things, and I found out that we didn't really have, even the Hubble telescope couldn't get a really good picture of Pluto. So yeah, it's really neat that New Horizons, we now have our first images, and I feel privileged to be one of the first humans in all of history to get to see this outer planet, dwarf planet, and what it actually looks like. Because of its size and great distance from the Sun, Pluto was not discovered until 1930, and Charon not until 1978. The discovery of Pluto is a very interesting story in its own right. It was discovered by astronomers searching for the mysterious planet X, a body believed to be causing irregular irregularities in the orbits of Neptune and Uranus. Yet, the most recent evidence suggests that Pluto and Charon are not large enough or massive enough to cause these irregularities. Adding to Pluto's mystery is its orbit, more eccentric and more inclined than any other planets. Some experts suggest that Pluto was a moon of Neptune cast off by some cosmic catastrophe. So there have been other dwarf planets discovered. In fact, the one was larger than Pluto, and I wonder if that is causing the irregularities in the orbits of Neptune and Uranus. Very interesting. So I just looked up the other dwarf planets, and there was a planet Eris that was believed to be larger than Pluto, but new measurements by New Horizons suggest that the diameter of Pluto is larger than that of Eris. So I guess that is yet to be determined. And another interesting fact about Pluto is there have been 5 discovered moons besides Charon. Okay. Or not beside, including Charon. All right. The irregular orbits of the moons of Neptune suggest that perhaps a catastrophe did occur in the past. Other astronomers speculate that Pluto may be the largest of the asteroids in a theoretical second asteroid belt near Neptune's orbit. Whatever the case, it must be remembered that Pluto is more difficult to study than any other planet in the solar system. There have been no flybys by spacecraft to directly photograph it until yesterday, as of me recording this. Go humanity, because it was not in favorable position during the Voyager missions. Plus, its incredible distance prevents more than limited observation. It thus remains a planet of mystery, our knowledge of it limited mostly to deduction and conjecture. Pluto and Charon are so far from the sun that they are almost like super refrigerated worlds. They have so little sunlight falling on them that they never heat up, and with a rotational period of a mere 6.39 days, but heat they do receive does not have much time to accumulate before being radiated back into space. Okay. So let's compare general information to the Earth, let's say. Zoom in. So diameter at the equator is 1,457. It'll be interesting to get that information from New Horizons to see the actual number, and then it'll be neat to do that and go back to this program to see how close it was. And Earth is 7,926. And it's a mass of 0.0017 Earths, escape velocity of 0.72 miles per second versus 7 for Earth. All right, let's look at the structure. Methane, discovered on Pluto's surface in 1976, explains why Pluto was once believed to be larger than Earth. The crust of Pluto being mostly highly reflective methane ice, the planet thus appeared as bright as a larger, less reflective body. Below the thin crust, a shallow mantle of mostly water ices surrounds a proportionally large core composed of a mixture of various ices and rocky silicates. Recently, studies confirm earlier conclusions that Pluto has a very thin atmosphere of methane. This may be the result of evaporation of its icy constituents, similar to the evaporation of the core matter of comets. Charon's structure is believed to resemble Pluto's, and since their brightness varies, they probably have irregular cratered surfaces. So, okay, so some interesting information here. So, I know with the atmosphere and Pluto's orbit, sometimes it gets closer to the sun, and I believe that's what heats up the methane snow and does create a atmosphere. And where it says created surfaces, we actually now know from the new high-res images from New Horizons that the crust of Pluto and Charon is young, suggesting that there's still active forces possibly in the planet, or maybe there's just not a lot of asteroids crashing into them way out there. But I think the current science that they're collecting is saying that there's possibly still active processes that is kind of renewing that crust. So I think that's really interesting, and it's kind of neat to now go back and see this with all this new information that we're finding out and still finding out. So I'm sure in the next couple months there'll be lots of new conclusive scientific information for these two worlds. And we can compare the structure, just the nice feature of the program. Alright, we can look at the orbit of Pluto. The orbit of Pluto and Charon is more eccentric and more inclined than any other planets. Thus, it varies between 2.74 billion and 4.57 billion miles from the Sun. With a 1.72 degree orbital inclination, this brings the double planet closer to the Sun than Neptune for about 20 years of its 247.69 year orbit, and has been the case between 1979 and 1999. Since their orbits are synchronized, and since Pluto moves above Neptune's orbit like a person passing above another on a bridge, the two planets will never collide. We have seen how our Earth and Moon orbit their collective center of mass, their barycenter. This cosmic balance point lies beneath the Earth's surface, but because their masses are relatively similar, Pluto and Charon possess mutual orbits, unique among the major planets. As you can see, their barycenter is not beneath Pluto's surface, but a good distance away from it. As the two bodies orbit their barycenter, it is as if they are locked in a perpetual celestial dance. Compelled by the force of gravity, one could almost imagine a solid bond between them. So what they're saying is, instead of Charon orbiting around Pluto, which it does, Pluto's actually orbiting around this point next to Pluto, and Pluto is also orbiting around that point. Because Charon is so large relative to Pluto, it has moved that, gravity point outside of Pluto, which is really kind of cool. The bond between Pluto and Charon is indeed strong. In fact, they are tidally locked. That is, the same sides face each other at all times. Thus, every 6.39 Earth days, they not only complete one orbit around their barycenter, but they also complete one rotation on their axis. It's as if they are two immense planet-sized weights on the end of a huge invisible weight bar. Thus, as their barycenter proceeds in its orbit around the Sun, you might also imagine them as dancers on the rim of a merry-go-round. Very cool. And we can compare orbits. So we can compare to Neptune. You can see Pluto and Neptune come together over here. But I guess it goes above, and they're in sync, so they'll never crash into each other. Very interesting. And Solar Shuffle, showed this in the other video, just turns it into a puzzle, so I'm not really going to do that. And that is all the information in this program for Pluto and Charon, the mysterious double planet. So I'll have a couple more videos from the rest of the solar system tour from this awesome old program, and I hope you enjoyed this part of it for Pluto and Charon. Thanks for watching.